Hey guys, I'm Josh Benitez and this is Texan Woodworks. Welcome back to the shop. Today we're going to do a real quick shop build. We're going to talk about how I got my clamps off the floor and off of random racks and actually build a custom one for my Bessey parallel clamps. Real quick, real easy using some scrap wood, glue and screws. So we'll show you how we did it. Stick around.
First things first, to get this build going, we're going to go through our scrap bin of plywood and just grab a few pieces that are the right dimensions. And once we get that, we'll take them right over to the table saw. And I'll get my Jessom stock guides to the proper height. And as I'm setting my table saw blade, you'll realize that I forgot to change the blade out. So we got a heavy duty flat top ripping blade in there. We'll go ahead and remove that and we'll put a plywood blade on there. It's got a lot more teeth. It's going to have a much smoother finish on that plywood edge. And as I'm ripping this board down, you can see it was pretty close to where I wanted it already, so we're really just taking a tiny little smidge off the end to get it nice and smooth the way we want it. Now that we've got it ripped to width, we're going to lay out a few lines and we're going to cross cut it. Now the first piece is going to be the backboard that the actual racks sit on themselves. And I'll be real honest, this was just an excuse for me to break out this Incra Miter 1000 SE. I love this thing. It is ridiculously easy to set up, crazy accurate. It feels super sturdy and I thought it was fantastic. So the second piece here will serve as the diagonal pieces. So once we get it cut to width, we'll crank that miter gauge to a 45-degree angle. We'll make sure and lay out these lines to make sure that we've got a right angle. That way we can make sure to get both of these braces out of just one square piece. Now that we've got that done, we're going to take this extra piece and we're going to make sure and get the height set with the table saw stock guides from Jessom. And then this is actually going to serve as our French cleat system. So we'll get two pieces out of here. Now the first piece is going to be mounted onto the wall itself. That's what we're going to tie into the studs to give us some additional support. And the second piece here will be put on the back of the rack. Now that these parts are cut, we'll make sure to label each one of them individually. Next, we'll get the table saw beveled to a 45-degree angle to cut the French cleats. And afterwards, realizing that I actually deleted the footage from this, but that's okay, you get the picture. Next, we'll cut a second set of cleats. After doing that, we'll bring the miter gauge back to a 90 degrees and we'll cut all the corners off of these just to prevent any sharp edges. After doing that, we'll do a quick dry fit, make sure we like the way the layout looks. We'll make sure and grab all of our labeled pieces and then figure out the spacing that we like. Now I used an actual clamp in my pocket Polini and cut a spacer to 1 1/4 inches. Obviously making sure to label that so I don't throw it back in the scrap bin on accident. Here's where you get to watch me work through my mental process of how I thought this was going to go. So first I use a clamp and then realize, wait, I need a brace. Then I'm trying to balance the clamp and realize this is just weird and awkward. And then I think, oh wait, I cut that spacer. I'll just use that. Then I start my layout lines and I use the cleat as an exact reference right afterwards. It was at this point that I realized that 1 1/4 inch spacer was the same thickness as the cleats. So instead of fumbling around with the weird angles and the odd thickness and weight balance of the clamp, I was able to use that 1 1/4 inch spacer for the entire layout. You'll notice I'm a little obsessive when it comes to labeling, but it just makes cutting later on a lot cleaner. And also as I'm changing the layout and kind of rearranging some things, it makes it a lot easier to understand where to cut, where to cross out. And you'll also see here in the next step that whenever I go to lay out the dado grooves, those labels came in real handy. So I take my pocket Polini, make sure and get the spacing just right, trace those lines on the other side of the board, that way as I'm running the dados underneath, I know exactly where they're going to land. I'll make sure to link the Jessom stock guides, my pocket Polini, as well as every other tool that I use in this build in the description below. should you choose to learn more or purchase for yourself. Make sure and check those out. I'm labeling again, and now I've got a nice clean mirror image of what's underneath. And normally I'd use these table stock guides on just about every single cut, but because I'm using dados, I'm not actually making a through cut, so I'm going to keep them out of the way for this process. Once I get the spacing aligned, as well as the fence, I want to make sure and raise my table saw blade so that I don't cut all the way through. After the dados were cut, we made sure to do a dry fit. After the dry fit, making sure that they're all snug, we made sure to put Titebond Original through here. I'm not worried about having Titebond 2 or 3 because it's not going to be exposed to any humidity, so it shouldn't be a problem. The main reason we're using glue is so that whenever I flip it over to pop some brad nails and then some more permanent fasteners with the screws, it'll actually have some holding power. And I can't be the only one that likes rolling around the glue in their hands. It just feels so satisfying. We'll very carefully flip it on its side after waiting about 5 minutes or so for the glue to tack up. Very nice, they all stayed put. We'll pop some brad nails in there to just keep them in place. And you can see right here why that one fell out. I hadn't popped nails in that one just yet. And that's exactly why we're doing this, so that whenever we go to pre-drill and screw, that they actually stay put and don't slide around on me. The last thing we want is for a nail or a screw to pop through here. Now we'll use my handy dandy Bosch 12 volt series to get these pre-drilled and countersunk. I really do love the way that this countersink bit from Tools Today works. It is incredible. It leaves very smooth countersink lines without really doing a whole lot, and I don't have to worry about over drilling either. We'll screw those cleats in, make sure they're nice and secure, and of course you have to admire your work. The next step is going to be to take those French cleats that we cut earlier, get an exact line, and that way we know how to cut them exactly to length. Once we cut them, we'll go ahead and snap some glue on there. And the same process as before, we'll slap a few brad nails in there. And then make sure to countersink and screw it in as well. I wish I could drill and screw that fast in real life. Not too shabby looking. Now we'll get the other cleat hung up on the wall. After doing some quick layout and marking the studs, we'll pre-drill and countersink those as well. And we'll go ahead and get the screws started so I don't have to do too much fumbling when I'm up there. Now the longer clamps that I have are 50 inches, and they have a 50-inch capacity, but they're about 56.5 inches long, so I wanted to make sure that they wouldn't hit the top of my mini fridge whenever they hang. It's also going to give me a good reference point for where to hang that French cleat so that I know exactly how low from the ceiling I can put the whole system. And then here, we'll just screw them directly into the studs using 3-inch screws. You'll notice this cleat, whenever I hang it up, is a little bit longer, but I wanted to make sure and tie it into 2 studs, knowing that those longer parallel clamps can get very heavy. And of course we want to check for level just to make sure that they don't get skewed in any way. Now the final steps from here are going to be to actually take the rack, place it directly on that French cleat system, which I love how simple it is, yet sturdy at the same time. We'll get our clamps hung, and I know this may not seem like a big project, but for me, I love organization and I love having everything have a specific place in my shop. So it was a big win, especially have it being done in one day. I'm really happy with how this build came out, and if you guys liked it, make sure to slap me a like down below. Also, give me some comments with your thoughts, and if you'd like to see more shop builds just like this, make sure and subscribe to my channel and follow me on Instagram at Texan_Woodworks. Until next time.